Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Trials and Tribulations. And so this week we're going to chat about a bit of what the hurt is, how the hurt happens, and moving through it, and also accepting your own personal journey. So I'm Kelly D, and this is the beautiful, wonderful, amazing Dr. B, and we're going to chat about her journey this week and how amazing she is, right?
Let's just talk about that. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's just talk about you and how amazing you
My favorite thing to talk about.
are.
No, for sure though. I actually am really passionate about this conversation today because even though we're talking about the hurt I've endured and then therefore overcome or moved through, I think it's a place I can honestly love and accept and be in. And I'm very passionate about helping others realize that even if they're in it or they're just barely moving through it or they've moved through whatever step you are in your journey, it's this kind of like awareness that the hurt shouldn't define you or whatever word you use. You might not use hurt, you might use some other word. um but the hurt, the emotions, the feelings, the pain that goes into the trial, tribulation, or trauma that you have endured or maybe even are going through right now. And it's this awareness that it doesn't have to define you. And that's literally my message in this life is the first 35 years happened for me so that in the next chapters or 2 chapters or 10 chapters of my life, I can speak on exactly this, exactly the idea of, yes, these things have happened. Yes, they did. And they hurt and they stink and they're terrible. And they're all of these things, right? But you have the choice to not allow those things, those experiences, those moments, those feelings to store and stay within you, then therefore affecting how you see the world, affecting how you show up in the world, affecting how you believe in yourself. And that's where I'm really passionate because I believe we do not have to live defined by our past, and we get to choose and create our best life moving forward.
Yeah, and create
Not
the
easy.
perception, yeah, and
Yeah.
the life that we actually want to live, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and be
Mm-hmm.
empowered
Mm-hmm.
with that. So, are
Mm-hmm.
you comfortable sharing your story, your journey?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've had a long journey. And so I guess where I'd really start is so I was like 22 years old, 21, 22 years old. Just recently graduated from college. I was a Division I soccer player, moving into the semi-professional league, played a couple years there. And so it's like during this time of the height of the career, I'm a college grad, life couldn't be better. Like this is freaking
Hmm.
fantastic, right? Like cloud nine, living the dream. So I thought, until, and the until was really two big things that occurred within like a month of each other. And initially, I was injured in one of the semi-professional games, and that ended up being a really long road. I had a bone in my foot that didn't get blood flow anymore, so it died off. But they didn't know that right away, so there was a lot of pain, and then ended up having surgery like a year later. So it was just this long process of wear the cam boot, walking boot all day long, and then put the cleats on at night to try and play. And it was just so painful. And I never did return to soccer at that level. And
I
now,
couldn't even
of course,
imagine.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
but at the time that was like crushing, right? Like here's your
Hmm.
career as you know it, it's your outlet. Like that was my outlet. That was my mental, emotional, physical outlet and had been since I was 5. So
And
anything
who
in
you
my life,
are, right? Part of who
it's
you
in
are
my
with that.
DNA, is what I say,
Yeah.
right? And so this idea of even from 5 years old when I started to that age of 21, 22, when I know was no longer then able to play at that level, it was this idea of anything, whether it was bullying or whether it was like a breakup or whether it was like fighting at home, like whatever it was, that was my outlet. That was my language. That was my community. Those were the people that, like, even if they didn't know what was happening with me, that was my safe
Mm.
space to be.
Yeah, your support system.
Totally. So in
Yeah.
that moment, career ending injury is what I call it, but never returned at that. I was fortunate to be able to play in women's leagues and things like that afterwards, but never at that level again. Well, then just shortly thereafter, I was drugged and raped by 3 men. And at that moment, it was like, I no longer have my outlet. I no longer have my community. I don't even like know what life looks like because I haven't really started a career. And then this happens for me. At the time it was to me, right? And it was this like self-worth, like suck the life right out of you. Who am I? What the heck am I doing? Pain beyond belief, not only in my foot, but now in my pelvic region, bleeding, pain, so much agony. And then all the emotions that flood in of like the victim emotions, I'll call them, of I'm not good enough. I asked for this. I like, what did I do? What led me to have this happen to me? It's my fault. I'm a failure because of the drugs. And I could reposition this later, but because of the drugs, the aftermath of waking up cold and bloody and naked on a stranger's floor with people there and not knowing where I was, not knowing like where any of my, and not even knowing what had happened because I was basically paralyzed from the drugs, was this whole like how I reacted, I'll say, what the things that I chose to do after I was able to get out of that place. Looking back, if I was conscious and aware and like fully like my brain is working, would not have chosen that route. So there was a lot of this like almost instant, like, I'm a failure. What if they do this again? More than likely, they're out there doing it next weekend to somebody else. And I just went through this like complete shame cycle of, had
Yeah.
you done what
A
you
fear
should have
factor.
done? Totally. And
Yeah.
trauma brain, like, I literally was like paralyzed in so many ways. And so I went on, so kind of my next piece of my journey was this like couple years of just not being myself. I made choices that didn't align with who I was leading up to that moment. Choices that put me in danger again, choices that
Kind of like a
weren't.
self-sabotage, right?
That's it. And then once I started going to counseling, it was this awareness of some of those choices were me being present to make a choice to put myself in a similar situation. But now I was getting to choose to be there, even though I was like wasted to actually get there. It was the choice of knowing that I was going to drink to a certain level to put myself in that position. And that was this like awareness of, I'll call it the trauma brain, but the aftermath of not like, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know like what next best step to take. And I was just making choices off the cuff, but from a place of insecurity, fear, scarcity mindset, like all of these, just like everything. Right. But it wasn't
Mm.
me. And I think there was just like a pilot light that was left on of this, like, no, 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 girl, like you still, there's a lot more in this world for you, right? Like this isn't the end all be all. And then there was one morning at 3 a.m. where I like woke up from like a sleep, sat up in the bed, and it was that moment where something, kind of like we talked about your story last time with the cord, is like there was something in that moment based on what had happened up to that point where it was like, oh, this is not the life I want to live.
Mhm.
This is, I don't know where to step. I don't know what to do, but I know this isn't it. And then I still made some errors. I chose some relationships that weren't healthy. I was in a 5-year relationship with a man who was very narcissistic and very controlling. And I had a lot of growth through that. I had a lot of awareness of like what codependency was and how do I stand in my own truth and how do I choose me and how do I set boundaries. And so I'm really grateful for, all the different experiences. And then another relationship where he was cheating. And when I approached him, he became very physically abusive and I had to file a restraining order. And so just different things that like in that evolution of my journey, that hurt just kept like, I'm like, why does this keep happening to me? Why? Right. So that like
Yeah.
kind of victim mindset, um, until one day I was through the different healing methods, right? And that's part of my story is one reason I'm a pelvic and sexual health expert and have gotten into the world of mind body healing is exactly that. Because I had been through something, and then when I started working in healthcare and saw there was patients that weren't getting better with the traditional model, I was able to like, oh, okay, good. This is my journey, but this is also their journey, and
Yeah.
realizing that
There's
there's
a missing
more,
piece.
there's a
Yeah.
missing piece. And so being able to take all of the emotions, all of the hurt, all of the pain, and just repurpose it in this way of like, actually, I'm grateful. That sounds really weird when I say it, but I like mean that from the depths of my heart, is I'm so grateful for all of it because it has brought me to today, and I love who I am. And I love that I get to facilitate shifts and healing in others. And so, like, I would do it again. Honestly, it sucked, but I would do it again because it has truly made me a better person to have to work to strengthen and evolve in that healing journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for sharing that for
Yeah, of
sure.
course. Of course.
And so for you, is this an everyday, not
Mm.
struggle, but an everyday,
Hmm.
um, like kind of method that you have to go, like, is there, like, do you have a trigger sometimes or what, if you want
Yeah.
to
Oh,
share?
yeah. Okay. So here's like the most frustrating thing. Okay. Is so like during the different years of healing, and I've done tons. I speak, I'm an advocate for all the healing modalities because I
Yeah.
don't believe there's a one-stop shop, and I don't
No,
believe that there's a like a specific protocol because everyone's journey is different. So it's not like,
yeah,
oh, I did this and then this and then this, so Kelly, therefore you should do this and this, right? No, 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 no,
exactly.
no, no. That's not how that works.
Everybody's different.
Everybody
Everybody's
is
different.
different. So let me just like throw that out there because that is a true statement. So if you've tried
Yeah.
something in your journey and it didn't work, or it didn't really resonate or didn't feel good, or you didn't really see the benefit, don't stop, keep going, right? Like
Yeah.
do not give up because there's more. There's more. And there's so many amazing modalities out there that can truly help
Mhm.
facilitate those shifts because shifts happen in you.
Yeah.
But sorry, I got off on a tangent there. So I think
Let's pull it back. Let's just pull it back here.
the most frustrating part for me, Kelly, and everyone listening was this. I had to freaking go back to the rape so many times in this damn journey. Sorry for the language. But I remember, especially at the beginning, it was prominent. Like it was the thing that my body and my brain needed to shift. So it
Yeah.
came up every time, no matter the modality. And I had to, right. And
Because it was
I,
on the surface, right? It was on
it
the
was
surface
on the
and it was
surface.
visceral. Yeah.
Mhm. There were so many layers to it,
Hmm.
so many layers, and I won't get into the details of it all, but part of it too was this, because I had been drugged and I literally couldn't speak and I literally couldn't move my body. There was this like kind of brain body separation of, this is happening to me in this moment right now, and I'm just gonna kind of go to this other place, but I could
Hmm.
see like pieces of what was happening in front of me. So it was almost like this like movie glitch that was coming in and out, and my dream would be that same glitching movie reel every
Yeah.
single night. But I didn't know more beyond that because I didn't have any recollection of other aspects because I had just shut it off, right?
Yeah.
And so in the
And
different
that's scary too
modalities,
on so many other
super
levels, right?
scary,
Because you don't
super
even know,
scary.
like, you know that this happened, but you
Mhm,
don't even know like the sequencing
mhm,
or any kind, just to even put it together so you can get some kind of closure, if I may
yeah.
say that, but
Mhm,
some kind of
mhm,
like sense of how it all went down
mhm,
and
mhm.
Like,
Yeah, I didn't have
like
answers.
logical. Yeah, you had
It's like
nothing.
somebody that has pain and they're searching for a diagnosis, because at least having a label on it will give them a little bit of like, oh, now I can take the next best step because I know it's X diagnosis. Right.
Exactly.
And so is that
Exactly.
idea of like, I don't even know. I just know I hurt and I know this thing happened. And then it was like finally coming forward and sharing my story. And there were people that didn't believe me. There were people that told me it was my fault because I decided to go to a bar and have a drink. Like, so the external support that I thought I would get sharing my story wasn't the reality of my situation at that time. And there were
Hmm.
some people that really were like, but they don't know what to say, right? Here's this person confiding in them that this trauma had happened. And they're like, I don't know. I don't even know how to help you, right? But they at least were listening, and at least had some belief in me and my story and my truth of what happened. Um, but the frustrating part was that, so that was, gosh, 21 years ago. Um,
Excuse me.
I think it was 20 years ago now, but hey, cool. It's behind me in the sense of like, I don't recall the details, but over those 2 decades, in various times of the ebb and flow of healing, that experience would come back up. But what I can say is that from the beginning, when I started the healing journey, and that was hard and it was ugly, and I was reliving it in a sense, is as I've worked with it and through it and accepted different parts of it and rewired it and pulled it out of my tissues memory, now when it comes up, it's literally in that moment, I can be there and be in this appreciative space of like, oh, we're here again, cool, there's still a little bit left, or it's linked in a different way within my tissue, the body does keep the score, but now I know I'm safe. And now I know what's happening. I know that this is actually a benefit in that my body and my mind are clearing or transforming this energetic lesion around this other piece of the spider web. Because I say it's like a webbing when we have a massive experience, especially something
Yeah.
like that. It's this like, right, it's going to latch to whatever it can within our
Hmm.
tissue. That could be the organ system, musculoskeletal system, that could be within your brain. And so we're going to have like the tissue holds the truth. And so
Yeah.
as we get to those deeper layers and that cellular expression is coming forward and we're able to start pulling it out, and I'll use this analogy. I use it in my book, but I'll use it here too, in this idea of like, if I had a sock drawer, and let's say when I was 21 and the experience happened, I have this sock drawer and like all these socks go in there, right? All these pieces of the memory. And I literally now I'm 43 years old and I open the sock drawer and all those socks are still there. Mind you, I've then bought new socks. I have other socks. And so this drawer is just like overflowing.
Hmm.
But the socks that I have from when 21 years ago, I don't need them. I guarantee they don't fit. They have holes in them. The elastic doesn't work. They don't serve me
They
anymore.
don't feel right.
No. So get in
Yeah.
there, get rid of those socks, throw them away. Don't donate them, especially if it's something like that. But like in this analogy, but like get rid of them. Now, not only do I have more space in my drawer, but when I go in to get socks, I know the sock that I am picking out is going to fit, it's going to serve me, it's going to feel good, and it aligns with who I am today.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm grateful now when the rape comes up, because I'm able to sit there and be like, oh, cool, just another sock, get rid of it. Oh, that was in the back of the drawer left corner. Like, don't need that. Let's just get rid of that. Right.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
disregard that.
yeah, but it takes work to do that, and the work is not easy. There's sometimes where it really is not easy, but what I will say is that it's worth it, absolutely
Yeah.
worth it. And on any journey there's going to be days where your footing is off or you have to stop and take a rest, and that's just part of the journey. And so even in the healing journey, you're still going to have days where you're like, I need a break. Girlfriend's got to process this stuff like up in
Yeah.
here, like, oh my gosh, right?
And
um
so, and so what do you find, like, if you journal, or like we've talked about how
mhm,
you have that time in the morning, like,
mhm.
do you find that that time in the morning is like your time to kind of center, like not thinking about the rape all the time, obviously,
Right,
right? But
right.
do you feel that time in the morning for you is like what really gets you like in a frame of mind where you can be like, okay, I can take on the day, and
Hmm.
whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like,
Hmm.
are you able to create that kind of space for yourself
Hmm.
where if something, because you may be seeing a patient and it may trigger you just from their
Hmm.
story, just
Hmm.
not because you want to intervene like with your own process, but because you're like, okay, this happened to me, I did this
Totally.
and this,
Hmm.
now you need to do that. Like, obviously as a therapist we can't do that, right? But
Yeah.
do you find sometimes that when you're working in a pelvic in the pelvic health, and if there is like a sexual component to it, do you have to kind of realign yourself during that session or at
Hmm.
the end of the day? Like what is your process? Do you mind
Yeah.
if I ask you that?
Yes, yes, and totally yes. All the things. Because we're going through life and there's gonna be my husband and I are watching a movie. I don't recall what it was, but it was a couple months ago, and it was about like there was a sexual in I don't know, we'll call it a rape or assault or something that had happened to this person in the movie, and we're watching it and it's kind of late at night, and he says, I can't watch, like, we need to turn this off. I can't watch this. How can you sit here and watch this right before bed? And I was like, well, one, I've done the work. So I can like make my brain realize it's just a movie and not my story,
Yeah,
not mine to hold. But I
yeah.
also work in this every single day, and I've done my own work in this. So I can dissociate someone else's story from my own,
Hmm.
and that took work to do. So being able to, so kind of the way I look at it is this idea of, if you, Kelly, were to walk in and you have a $10 bill and you hand it to me, I'm not keeping any of that $10. All you're in theory doing is asking me to help facilitate a shift in what that $10 looks like. So I might give you change of a five and five ones, or I might give you five 10 ones, or whatever,
Hmm.
like, way of changing that. But at the end of the day, whether I'm watching a movie, I'm talking to a girlfriend who's going through something, is I'm able to stay grounded in knowing that you've handed over the $10 bill. I can hold space for that, and I can be empathetic too. And I have tools because I've had to do it myself, and the
Yeah.
wisdom of the institutes that have worked, all the things, right? So I can literally give you a five and five ones back, and you're able to leave with that and take the next best step for you. So that's
Hmm.
something that really helps me when I'm hearing and in somebody else's story. But then what I say too is I've created the gift of not remembering, as your
Hmm.
story is not mine to hold.
Right.
So is sometimes I feel guilty because somebody tells me a story and I honestly don't remember the details because I choose not to, because it's not can you imagine if I had to hold everyone's story and be no, that's not
No,
my job is to give the change. My job is
yeah,
not to keep the $10. And so
that's right.
for me, really being able to like concretely say, that is not mine. I love you and I'm going to facilitate and help you make these shifts, but that's not mine to hold. It's not mine to try and fix, in a sense.
Yeah.
But if we go back to like this self-empowering tools of grounding, yes, my morning routine is so important for me to just be intentional in my day and my choices. And I think anytime our external world is kind of cray cray happening,
Yeah.
chaos, when we can come back here and ground and center, whether it's yoga, pilates, running, meditating, prayer,
Karate.
journaling. I do karate now.
Yeah.
So whatever that like method is that's safe and secure, but lets you move that energy through you and lets you just
Yeah.
come back to that center, I think that is like the most beautiful thing anybody can do for themselves, is to find that moment. Like we talked about music for you in the last series, right? And finding that moment of just what brings you back here
Yeah.
so that you can be centered, make choices that are most aligned with you, fill your cup, and take the next
Yeah.
best step for you. So
So I have to say, like, one of the things that I really admire about you is how you can turn a challenge into a
mm,
success.
mm,
Like, really, truly, I really admire that about
mm.
you.
Thank you.
Really
Thank
do.
you. Yeah.
Thank you for
I
thank you for sharing with me, of course,
yeah.
and everyone that is listening and with watching. And of
Yeah.
course, we're gonna be supportive here again and just
Mm,
mention that if you are in a similar type of a situation, please just ask for help. Like, get some help within your network or your city, your town, wherever you are. There is resources. Please
yeah.
go to them
Mm,
because, again, you are the most important person.
mhm,
Plain and
mhm.
simple.
Plain and simple. Boom, mic
Yeah.
drop. Because
Mic
it's true.
drop.
Yeah, I
That's
love it. So thank you guys for being
yeah.
here, and we'll see you next week. We got some more goods
Mhm.
on trials, tribulations, and trauma next week. So
Because
shift happens, literally.
okay,
Awesome. We love
bye.
you guys. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.
See